Gigaba reiterated the government position that its economic policies remain in place. This after S&P Global and Fitch ratings agencies cited political instability as one of the reasons for their downgrade actions. Gigaba says it's business as usual.
I have given the guarantee that at the level of government, we are completely committed to ensuring that there is continuity with regard to those policies and programs. Because these are not the decisions, these are not policy decisions of Treasury or of the Minister of Finance. They are cabinet decisions, they are collective decisions.
Those institutional investors in the room came away more positive than when they went in.
I think that we were all very happy to be included in such a discussion. It's not usual that when a minister comes in 10 days into his role, that analysts and investors have an opportunity to actually speak to him and ask him the really tough questions, given also that the past 2 weeks have been quite dramatic, for lack of a better word.
There was also a hint of some optimism too.
Found a lot more comfort from what has come out today. I think investors, largely investors in this room, were listening with attention. The definition of radical economic transformation, which was top of mind, came through, which is really just about include more people. We need more inclusive growth, which helps, along with the detail around state-owned enterprise reforms, which were top of mind.
It also appears that the new finance minister allayed some anxiety, which has been reflected in the currency and the local markets.
I'm surprisingly positive. I think I've, have some empathy for the situation that he's inherited. There's a clear message around the need for transformation. I think we all know that. I think the question marks going into this discussion were exactly what that means. I think it was a sobering conversation, and clearly there are, there's a good understanding by the Minister of Finance and his team of the need to spend wisely.
There's no question that the finance minister is on a charm offensive at the moment to make sure that investors, both institutional and others, understand that there's no policy change in the wind at the moment. This is good news for everyone. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, Angelo Coppola now joins us in Johannesburg with more on the situation in South Africa. Angelo, welcome to the show. Now, as you said there, it's good news for everyone. But did the finance minister, Malusi Gigaba, allay all investors' concerns with that meeting? Were they satisfied with his plans for the economy? And certainly, do South Africans feel that the economy is now in a safe pair of hands?
Well, the investors in the room appear to be a little calmer now that they've had this time with Gigaba, but no plans were outlined. Interestingly, attendees didn't hear the phrase radical economic transformation either. It wasn't bandied about at all until they were asked a question. We did hear that the president has called an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss the downgrades, and we understand that that meeting will also be used to discuss the plans in more detail and also to bring cabinet up to speed on the current situation and the road ahead. South Africans, on the other hand, aren't so sure about the economy. Gigaba still has to prove himself and his resolve to maintain that fiscal discipline, which here.
Well, Angelo, for the second time in less than a week, we did see protesters on the streets of Johannesburg calling for President Zuma to step down. How much impact are these marches having on Zuma's political future?
Well, it's been suggested that the impact of these marches on Zuma's political future is mostly symbolic. On the other hand, it's also been suggested that the ANC is watching the public and the marches very carefully. Today's marching crowd is actually estimated at around 30,000 people. That's more than Friday's march on the same venue. And it's not the president actually was expecting for his 75th birthday, which obviously, as you know, was today. Opposition parties also have said that they plan marches in other cities. So whether the mounting public pressure will force the ANC NEC's hand or not remains to be seen. For now, though, the president is still in place.
Now, Angela, with regards to the markets, we saw the Rand strengthen today. We also saw the JSE rebound as well. Are we seeing confidence returning to South Africa's markets? And certainly, how long do you think we're going to see this rebound last?
Well, in fact, the Rand to the US dollar spot today strengthened by nearly 1.25%, which is a great move in the right direction. analysts remain surprised that the currency hasn't reacted more negatively to the reshuffle and the downgrades, as was the case when Minister Nene was fired in December 2015. There have been suggestions that liquidity is being pumped into the market to keep that currency on a fairly stable trajectory. The biggest issue facing the currency and the resources and banking stocks on the JSE, though, is what's going to happen in the short term and whether President Zuma goes or stays. Meanwhile, of course, the new finance minister, as we've said, is on this campaign to try and assure local and international institutional investors that the country's policies remain in place. The acid test, though, is the policy conference in June and the leadership elective conference, which happens in December.
Now, Angelo, with regards to whether President Zuma stays or goes, give us an update on that expected parliamentary vote on the no confidence motion against President Zuma.
Well, the situation is extremely fluid and it's getting more complicated as we speak. And this is why this is the case. One of the opposition parties, the UDM, approached the Constitutional Court late last week and asked that a secret ballot be held in the House on that no confidence debate. They got a hearing, which they consider a victory. Yesterday, the opposition DA party asked the Speaker to postpone the vote until the Constitutional Court had heard the case. The House Speaker said no, initially. That was this morning. The DA then challenged the Speaker, who then conceded and postponed the debate and the vote until Parliament officially opens in May. So we're back to square one.
Well, many thanks for that update, Angelo. Angelo Coppola joining us there in Johannesburg.